Get out! The words hit me before I even finished sitting down. I looked up at the alpha who'd spoken, sharp jaw, cold eyes, hands gripping the armrests of his wheelchair like he wanted to break something. His twin sat beside him, silent and watchful, identical except for the scar that cut through his left eyebrow. I set my bag on the floor. No, the first alpha's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I said no. I pulled the chair closer to their table, ignoring the way every other Omega in the room had gone quiet. They were all watching now, holding their breath, waiting for me to crack. I didn't drag myself across the city in the rain to leave because you have bad manners. You have 30 seconds before I call security. Call them. I leaned back, crossing my arms. I'll wait. The silent twin shifted, just barely. With his scent cut through the air. Rain-soaked stone, sharp and fading. Wrong. Like something dying that refused to let go. The first alpha's lip curled. You're wasting our time. You've rejected 20 Omegas in 2 years, I shot back. Your time's already wasted. I'm Bek Chanyol, by the way, since you didn't ask. We didn't ask because we don't care. Good, we're on the same page. I reached for the water glass in front of me, took a sip. My hand didn't shake. It should have. Let me guess. You're Shin Gitai, the one who talks, and you're Shin Doko, the one who doesn't. Doko's fingers twitched against his wheelchair, the only movement he'd made since I sat down. Gitai smiled, and it was vicious. You think you're different from the others. I think you're predictable. I set the glass down, met his stare. You sit there waiting for someone to either pity you or fetishize you, and when they do, you destroy them for it. It's a test, it's efficient, and it's exactly what everyone expects from alpha CEOs who've been hurt. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Giddy's knuckles went white. Get out! Why? I didn't look away. Afraid I'll pass? 3 hours earlier, my grandmother had cornered me at my flower shop. You're going tonight, she said, setting an envelope on my work table between the white roses I'd been arranging. No arguments. I didn't look up. I'm not interested in being paraded in front of alphas who don't want me. The Shin twins need an Omega. They've rejected 20. They clearly don't need anyone. They need someone who won't break. Her voice softened, and that's how I knew she was serious. When my grandmother went gentle, it meant the decision was already made. Your father's pack is closing in. That beta from the Western Territory, the one your father owes money to, he's demanding you as payment. You have a week, maybe less. My hand stilled. I'll handle it. You can't, not alone. She stepped closer, her scent washing over me, cedar and smoke, grounding and immovable. But if you bond with the Shin twins, you'll be untouchable. Their pack is one of the oldest in the city. No one would dare come after you. And what do they get? A sharp-tongued Omega who smells like dirt and flowers? They get someone who won't run. She pushed the envelope toward me. The gathering starts at 7. If you don't show, I'll tell your father where you've been hiding. I looked up sharply. You wouldn't. I would. Because what he'll do to you is worse than anything those alphas could. She left before I could argue. I opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation in a single line written in her handwriting. Don't pity them. Just see them. I almost didn't go, but I went anyway. You're right, I said, pulling myself back to the present. Giddy was still staring at me like I'd burned his house down. Doko hadn't moved. I do think I'm different. You're not. Giddy's voice was flat, final. You'll leave just like the rest. Maybe, I shrugged, but not because you scared me. Then why? Because you're boring. I stood grabbing my bag. You sit here playing the same game over and over, rejecting people before they can reject you. It's safe, it's controlled, and it's pathetic. Giddy's hand slammed against his armrest, and the sound echoed through the hall. You don't know anything about us. I know your father cut the tendons in your legs when you were kids. The words came out quiet, deadly. Every Omega in the room froze. I know you spent your whole lives being underestimated. And I know you've turned that pain into a weapon because it's easier than letting anyone close enough to hurt you again. Doko inhaled sharply, the first real sound he'd made. I looked at him. Really looked. His eyes were dark, shadowed, but there was something raw beneath the ice. something that looked like recognition. "I'm not here to fix you," I said. "I'm not here to pity you, and I'm sure as hell not here to worship you." I turned toward the door. "I'm here because you two are my best option. But if you'd rather keep playing this game, I'll find another way." I made it 5 steps before Daco spoke. "Wait." I stopped. Didn't turn around. His voice cracked. "Why did you really come?" I looked back over my shoulder. Both of them were watching me now, something desperate flickering behind their masks. "Because," I said quietly, "I need protection." Daco's scent hit me like a tidal wave. Not fading, not dying, alive, and it smelled like home. I told myself the whole ride home that it meant nothing. The scent, the way Daco's eyes had followed me to the door, the crack in his voice when he said wait. None of it meant anything. People had moments like that all the time. Raw, unguarded seconds that dissolved the minute reality set back in. By morning, the Shin twins would have forgotten my name and moved on to disappointing their 22nd candidate. I unlocked my shop, stepped inside, and breathed. Chrysanthemums, white roses, the faint green smell of fresh-cut stems and damp soil. This was mine. Every shelf, every bucket, every imperfect arrangement I'd built from nothing. No one had given it to me. No one could take it. I tied my apron, picked up my shears, and got back to work. The door opened 20 minutes later. I didn't look up. "We're closed." "You think I care?" My shears stopped. My father stepped inside, tracking mud across the floor I'd just swept. Broad, loud, careless. The kind of alpha who filled every room with noise instead of presence. Behind him came Ryu Sungpil, lean and flat-eyed, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. The Western Territory beta my father had been trying to hand me off to for months. I'd never met him in person, but I knew the look immediately. The kind of man who purchased things and called it devotion. "Dad," I set my shears down carefully. "Get out of my shop." "Your shop?" He laughed, scanning the shelves like they personally offended him. "You mean the place you hide in while pretending you don't have a family?" "I don't owe this family anything." "You owe me everything." He crossed the room in 4 steps. I held my ground even though everything in me said to move. "Sungpil came all this way. You're going to stand there and embarrass me?" Ryu Sungpil looked me over slowly, unbothered. "Smaller than I expected." "And you are exactly what I expected," I said flatly. My father grabbed my arm. Hard and sudden. "Pack what you need. You're leaving tonight." I yanked back. "No! You don't get to say no." His grip tightened, fingers digging in deep. "You think you can disappear, change your address, ignore my calls, pretend this family doesn't exist?" His voice dropped low and ugly. "One word from me to the right people, and everything you've built here is finished. I'll drag your name through every pack council in this city. I'll make sure no one trusts you. No one buys from you." He leaned in close enough that I could smell the sourness on his breath. "You think this shop protects you? I'll burn it down with a conversation." My throat tightened. He meant it. He always meant it when money was involved. Ryu Sungpil picked up a flower from the nearest bucket, turning it between his fingers. "Full pack protection, monthly allowance, simple arrangement." Their eyes glared down at me, almost forcing me to give in. But the door opened, breaking the tension. Not the cheerful chime of a regular customer. Something quieter, heavier. The deliberate sound of people who never needed to announce themselves. Gidi's wheelchair crossed the threshold first, his pack security filling the doorway behind him without a single word. Doggo followed, in eyes moving across the shop in one careful sweep until they landed on my father's hand, wrapped around my arm. Everything stopped. My father turned. I watched the emotions move across his face in sequence. Recognition, intimidation, confusion. He loosened his grip slightly, not from decency, but from instinct. Even he understood that the Shin twins weren't people you manhandled someone in front of. "Can I help you?" he said carefully. Neither twin looked at him. Gide looked at me, his expression unreadable. Doko moved his wheelchair forward until he reached my work table, reached into the bag hanging from his armrest, and placed a document on the surface between the rose buckets. A contract. Formal. Sealed, thick with legal language I could read from where I stood. Marriage proposal, Shin Gitai, Shin Doko, Bek Chanyol. My father's eyes dropped to it, back up to the twins, back down to the contract. I could see the exact moment the calculation happened behind his eyes, the greed igniting like a match or striking in a dark room. He released my arm completely. Well, his entire posture shifted, the aggression dissolving into something smooth and performative. He straightened his jacket, smiled broadly. I'm Bak Jung-soo, Chanyol's father. He stepped toward the twins with his hand extended. I had no idea my son had such distinguished admirers. Gitai looked at the outstretched hand and said nothing. My father lowered it without missing a beat. Naturally, as his father, I have to make sure any arrangement involving my son is legitimate. Serious. He pressed a hand to his chest with practiced sorrow. I raised Chanyol alone. Everything he is came from my sacrifice. My investment. You understand? Don't, I said quietly. I was looking at the twins, not him. Don't engage with him. My father named a number. Ryu Sungpil actually blinked. Then my father, warming to his own performance, glanced thoughtfully at the ceiling and doubled it without hesitation. For emotional damages, he added solemnly, letting go of a son is painful. Giddy pulled out his phone, made a transfer, put it away. 12 seconds. Maybe less. My father checked his screen. The sorrow evaporated instantly. He clapped Ryu Sungpil on the shoulder, and they walked out without looking back. No farewell, no hesitation, not even the pretense that any of this had been difficult. The door clicked shut. Silence swallowed the shop. I stood completely still, staring at the contract on my work table, my hands shaking. You paid him, I said. Neither twin spoke. You sat there and handed him money. My voice cracked down the middle. Like I was a transaction, like you could just point at me and put a number on it, and that makes everything fine. I grabbed the contract off my work table and slapped it back down in front of them. I am not for sale. I don't care how much you paid him. I don't care about your protection or your pack or your marriage proposal. You just did the exact same thing he was trying to do. You just had better manners about it. Gite's jaw tightened. We did it to get him out. I didn't ask you to. He had his hands on you. I've handled him before. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the work table to stop it. I didn't need you to swoop in and buy my freedom like it was a business acquisition. I stopped, swallowed. It doesn't matter what I needed. Silence stretched between us, long and uncomfortable. Then Daco reached forward and turned the contract around to face me. He pressed one finger to the bottom of the last page, where a single line sat empty. You don't have to sign it, he said quietly. I stared at him. We came because we wanted to. His voice was rough, unpracticed, like someone who'd forgotten how to say true things out loud. Not because of a contract, not because of your grandmother. We came because you were the only person who sat across from us tonight and didn't look down. The shop went very still. You looked straight at us, Gitai said, his voice stripped of its usual cruelty. Like we were just men. I looked at them both. Really looked. Two men in wheelchairs in the middle of my flower shop at midnight, surrounded by roses and chrysanthemums, holding out a contract they just told me I didn't have to sign. I didn't know what to do with that. I pulled the contract toward me slowly, looked down at the empty signature line, looked back up at them. One condition, I said. Neither twin moved. You never make a decision about my life without asking me first. Not once. Not ever again. Doko's eyes held mine, steady and unblinking. Agreed, he said. And for the first time since they'd walked through my door, I had absolutely no idea who was more afraid. Them or me. We're not asking you to sign the contract today. Doko's voice cut through the silence of my shop, low and deliberate, and I turned to look at him because those were the last words I expected after everything that had just happened. Then what are you asking? I said. Giti's hands shifted on his armrests. Just slightly. Come live with us. 30 days. No signature, no obligation, no performance for anyone. See what this actually is before you decide what it isn't. He paused, and the pause had real weight to it. If you want to leave after a week, leave. If you last all 30 days and still want nothing to do with us, walk away. We won't follow. I looked at Daco. And if I say no right now, then you say no, he said simply. We leave, and your father becomes your problem alone. I looked at the contract on my work table, at my hands, at the mud on my floor that nobody had cleaned. I thought about Ryu Sungpil's flat eyes and the way my father had checked his phone and walked out without a single backward glance. I want my own room, I said. I keep the shop running, and you never make a decision about my life without asking me first. Not once. Agreed, Doko said. I picked up the contract and held it out to him. 30 days. Then I decide. He took it. I turned away before I could read anything into the way he held it like it mattered. Moving into the Shin Pak estate was supposed to feel like a strategic decision. I told myself that on the drive over, and again when I walked through the front door, acting approximately 11 more times over the next 2 days while unpacking my 3 good shirts into a wardrobe that could have housed a small family comfortably. It stopped feeling strategic on the second morning. I came downstairs to find both twins already at the dining table. Papers between them, coffee made, no performance of anything. Giddy had reading glasses pushed crookedly up his nose. Doko was working through a stack of contracts with a red pen, moving steadily like a man who'd been awake for hours. Neither of them looked up when I walked in. Neither of them said good morning, or asked how I'd slept, or arranged themselves to seem welcoming. Doko just pushed the coffee pot toward my side of the table without lifting his eyes from the page. I stood in the doorway longer than I should have before I sat down. They gave me my own schedule, my own space, transport to the shop every morning without being asked twice. No check-ins, no expectations. Just quiet in room and the strange, disorienting experience of 2 people anticipating what I needed before I said it out loud. I didn't know what to do with that. Cruelty I understood. Performance I understood. This slow, undemanding patience had no category in my experience, and it sat under my skin like something I couldn't scratch out. I caught myself watching them on the 4th morning, the way they moved through their routines with a kind of careful dignity that had clearly been built over years of refusing to be diminished. And I shut down that growing feeling toward them so fast I spilled my coffee. On the 5th day, Digatai found me in the garden fixing the rose bushes along the eastern wall. The pack gardener had been trimming them wrong for months, and it was bothering me enough that I'd borrowed shears and started correcting it without asking anyone. My mother planted those, Gitte said from the path behind me. I stopped cutting. I didn't know that. She liked white ones. A pause that felt carefully placed. She died when we were 9. I turned around. He was looking at the roses with an expression so controlled it was almost painful. I'm sorry, I said. He glanced at me sideways. Don't make it a moment. I'm not. I'm just saying I'm sorry. We stayed in the garden after that without speaking, and it was the most human either of us had been since the night we met. But then, my father arrived on the 7th day with a lawyer. I heard the commotion at the front gate from my room. Raised voices, my father's particular brand of theatrical grievance carrying clearly through the window. I was downstairs before I'd fully decided to move. His lawyer was polished, rehearsed, armed with paperwork claiming the original payment had been made under emotional duress and therefore carried no legal standing. Additional compensation was required immediately, or formal PAC tribunal proceedings would begin against the Shin family. My father stood behind the lawyer looking mournful and wronged, performing the grief of a man who'd been taken advantage of while he was vulnerable, while his eyes moved around the estate entrance, cataloging everything with the focused attention of someone calculating net worth. And the twins' legal team responded in 4 minutes. The lawyer left in 7. My father lingered at the gate long enough to catch my eye through the window, and what I saw on his face wasn't shame. It was satisfaction. Like this had always been the plan, to ruin everything for me, little by little. That evening, I found both twins in the sitting room and stood in the doorway until they looked up. I'm sorry, I said. He's been doing this my whole life, using me as leverage, moving me around like a piece on a board. I'm sorry you're in the middle of it. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Giddy said quietly, like he was reliving a casual memory, Our father held us down on the kitchen floor and cut the tendons in our legs with a kitchen knife. We were 7 years old. The room went absolutely still. Why not we know exactly, Daco said, what it feels like to be someone's instrument. My throat closed. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. 47 missed calls. My face on every platform, every feed, every headline screaming the same thing. Shin twins finally choose, and the Omega's name is Beck Chanyol. My name was everywhere, not my shop, not my face. My name attached to words I didn't recognize at first. Restoration bond, genetic compatibility, biological reversal, splashed across every platform like something that had been sitting in a dark room, waiting for someone to open the door. I sat on the edge of my bed reading the same headline over and over until the meaning finally settled into my chest like a stone. Beck Chanyol, rare bloodline, planted inside the shin pack to trigger a restoration bond that could reverse the twins' disabilities. I called my grandmother before I was fully awake. She picked up on the second ring. You knew, I said. The pause before she spoke told me everything. Chanyol, you knew about the bloodline. You knew what I was to them biologically, and you sent me here and let me believe it was my choice. My voice came out completely flat, which was worse than if it had broken. Was any of it real, or am I just the most convenient solution you found to a problem that had nothing to do with me? It was real, she said quietly. You are real. The marker exists, yes, but I sent you because I believed. I hung up. The knock at my door came 20 minutes later. One of the twins' security team, standing in the hallway with a tablet in his hand. Expression carefully neutral. Mr. Beck, we have something you need to see. He turned the tablet toward me without ceremony. Security footage. My father outside the offices of a media outlet, caught clearly on camera 3 days ago. Another clip. Another outlet. Another day, unhurried. Deliberate. My father walking in and out of press offices like a man running errands, selling the story of my bloodline to anyone willing to print it. I stared at the screen for a long moment. He leaked the news of my union to the twins, I said. Yes, the security officer said simply. I handed the tablet back. Where are they? I heard them before I saw them. The familiar rhythm of two wheelchairs moving together down the hallway, unhurried and completely unified. I turned around and faced both of them, and what I saw stopped me cold. Not cold, not controlled. Something raw and barely contained moving behind their eyes like pressure, building beneath a surface that was very close to breaking. Gidi spoke first. Hari, did you know? Know what? About the bloodline. His voice was quiet in a way that was more frightening than volume. About what your biology does to ours. About what bonding with you could mean for us. He stopped. His jaw tightened. Did you know before you came to that gathering? No, I said. Your grandmother did, Daco said. She had the records. She chose you specifically and sent you directly to us. And your father has been selling that information to every outlet that would listen. His eyes were dark and absolutely still. Everything points to one thing, Chanyol. Getting you inside this house and then using what you carry as leverage against us. He has already extorted money. What more is he going to do? I heard exactly what they weren't saying. You think I was in on it, I said. Neither of them denied it. Something cracked open in my chest. Not slowly, not carefully, but all at once. The way a window gives when the pressure on both sides becomes unbearable. You think I sat across from you at that gathering and performed indifference? You think throwing the contract back at you was a move? You think everything I said, everything I stopped, pressed both hands flat against my thighs and started again, because my voice was doing something I refused to let it do in front of them. You're accusing me of conspiring with my father. My father, the man who sold me in my own shop, the man I have spent my entire life running from. I looked at both of them, and I didn't look away. And the one thing you chose to believe about me, out of everything you've seen, is that I am exactly like him. We're not saying, Gitai started. While you are saying it, my voice didn't shake. I was proud of that, distantly. The way you notice small things when everything larger is falling apart. You're saying it without saying it, which is worse. Because if you screamed it, I could scream back. But this quiet, careful accusation, dressed up as a question. This is what people do when they've already decided and just want confirmation. The hallway went completely still. Dako's hands rested motionless on his wheels. Gita's jaw was tight, both of them watching me with something shifting in their expressions that I was too furious and too hurt to name. And I wasn't going to stand there trying to read them when they had already read me wrong so completely. I turned and walked back upstairs. I pulled my bag from the wardrobe, laid it open on the bed, and then started folding my shirts with slow, deliberate movements because my hands needed something to do before the rest of me came apart completely. I wasn't performing calm. I was holding it together through sheer stubbornness because falling apart in this house, in their house, after they just looked at me like that, was something I absolutely refused to do. I was leaving. The decision was already made. Then both of them appeared in my doorway together, saying nothing, taking up the entire frame, not blocking me and not stepping aside either, just present in a way that made the air in the room feel different. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. My father. I answered it, eyes still on the twins. How much this time? His laugh came through the speaker, easy and unbothered, in the laugh of a man who believed he was several steps ahead of everyone in the room. Money, he said. Shanyol, I'm not a money monger. How much this time, I said. My father's laugh came through the phone slow and easy, the laugh of a man sitting somewhere comfortable with nowhere to be. You really think everything I do is about money? Every single thing you've ever done has been about money. Maybe I've grown, he said. People change, Shanyol. The twins hadn't moved from my doorway. I could feel them there without looking. That particular stillness of two people who have decided to stay when leaving would have been simpler. I kept my voice flat. What do you want? Nothing yet. The yet landed softly, almost gently, which made it worse. I just wanted to hear your voice. Make sure you're comfortable in that big house. Make sure they're treating you well. A pause. Are they treating you well? Don't. I'm asking as your father. You've never asked anything as my father. My hand tightened around the phone. You called to tell me something, so say it. He was quiet for a moment, and in that quiet I could hear him deciding how much to give me. Not because he was uncertain. My father was never uncertain. But because he was the kind of man who understood that partial information was more unsettling than none. I called to tell you that things are moving along nicely. Better than I expected, honestly. The bloodline story was just the beginning. There's more coming, and when it does, I want you to remember that everything I do is for this family. My stomach dropped. What are you planning? Nothing you need to worry about yet. His voice was warm, almost paternal, which was the most frightening version of him. Just enjoy the house. Enjoy those two. While you can. While I can, I repeated. What does that mean? It means nothing lasts forever. He said it the way someone says good morning, casually, completely unbothered. Get some rest, Chanyol. You sound tired. The line went dead. I stood holding my phone in a room that had gone completely silent. The twins were still in the doorway. I didn't look at them immediately. I needed a second, just one, to put my face back together, because what my father had just done wasn't a threat I could argue against or a demand I could refuse. It was something worse, a door left open just wide enough to see darkness on the other side without being able to tell how deep it went. Chanyol. Gite's voice was quiet. He's planning something, I said. I don't know what. He wouldn't say. I set my phone down on the bed next to my open bag. He said the bloodline story was just the beginning. Neither twin spoke for a moment. Then Dako said, we owe you an apology. I looked up. We accused you without knowing. He didn't frame it carefully or wrap it in explanation. Just said it plainly, the way you say something when you mean it, and decoration would only make it smaller. We were wrong. Both of us, Gitai said. No qualifier. No but following it. I looked at them, really looked, and what I saw wasn't guilt performance or careful damage control. It was two people sitting inside their own wrongness without trying to make it more comfortable for themselves. And something about that simplicity hit harder than any elaborate apology could have. When the knot behind my sternum loosened slightly, not forgiveness. I wasn't there yet, but enough that the next breath came easier. I sat down on the edge of the bed. After a moment, both of them moved into the room, not crowding, just present, and the three of us existed in the same space without performing anything at all. He said the word family, I said eventually. He says everything he does is for this family. He's never once used that word without it meaning something he wanted. I turned it over slowly. We'll increase security, Ducko said. That's not what worries me. I pressed my hands together in my lap. What worries me is that he sounded happy. My father only sounds like that when he's already certain about the outcome. Giddy was quiet for a moment. After he showed up at the estate with the lawyer, we had our security team look into him. I went still. We weren't going to say anything until we were certain, Dogo said carefully. But what they found raises serious questions, Chanyol, about whether Baek Jung-soo is your biological father at all. The room tilted. Stop, I said. Both of them went quiet immediately. Stop the investigation. My voice was steady and I needed it to stay that way. I didn't ask for that. Whatever they found, I'm not ready for it. I looked down at my hands. I might never be ready for it, so I need you to let it go. Neither of them pushed. Neither argued or explained or made the case for why knowing was better. They simply stopped, and the fact that they stopped without question did something to the space between us that I didn't have words for yet. The quiet that settled after was different from every other quiet we'd shared. Softer, like something that had been held at a distance, finally being allowed to exist in the room. At some point, Gitai's shoulder came close enough to mine that I could feel the warmth of it without us touching. Dako's hand rested on the bed near mine, not reaching, just there, and I sat between them in the low evening light, carrying a grief too tangled to name, and noticed shown against everything I told myself since the night we met, that I didn't want either of them to move. Days passed in a blur. I came downstairs one morning to find breakfast already made, not by the kitchen staff, by them. Doko was at the stove when I walked in, moving with the focused patience I'd come to recognize as his default setting, and Giddy was at the table cutting fruit with the expression of someone who had decided to do a thing and was not going to be questioned about it. They both looked up when I walked in. Neither of them said anything. Doko put a plate in front of my usual chair and went back to the stove. I sat down and ate and didn't make it into a moment because I understood by now that was how they preferred things. No ceremony, no acknowledgement that something had shifted. Just the quiet fact of it sitting between us like something that had always been there. That was the morning I stopped pretending I wasn't falling for them. It had been building for days and I'd been ignoring it with the dedication of someone who knew exactly what they were doing and kept doing it anyway. The way Gitai started leaving gardening articles on the kitchen counter without comment, just there, like they'd appeared naturally, always about roses, always something I didn't know yet. The way Dako showed up at my shop one afternoon with no explanation, parked his wheelchair near the work table, and just sat there reading while I arranged flowers, not talking, not needing to, staying for 2 hours like he had nowhere else to be. The way they both remembered things I'd mentioned once, casually without emphasis, and turned those things into quiet actions that I only noticed after the fact. I started doing the same without thinking, making the second coffee pot, leaving Giddy's glasses on the table, learning which parts of the estate hallways had uneven floor transitions, and mentioning them to the house manager without telling the twins I'd done it, staying up later because the evenings had become the best part of my day, and I wasn't ready to admit that out loud. One evening I sat across from them after dinner and decided to be honest. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Yes," they said, at the same time, which happened more than people would believe. The bloodline thing. I kept my voice even. If bonding with me could actually heal your legs, give back what was taken, would you want that? I didn't let them answer yet, because I want you to know that I've grown fond of you, more than I planned. And if there's something I carry that could help you, I would want that. Not because anyone told me to, because I actually care what happens to you both. The room went quiet in a way that felt careful. I'd expected the walls to go up, the brittle defensiveness that came whenever anything touched the subject of their legs. I'd been ready for it. Giti looked at me steadily. Nobody's going to pressure you into doing anything with your biology. Not for us. The council has been pushing us since you arrived, Doko said. Bond with him. Fix what's broken. Use the bloodline. His voice was even, but the tiredness underneath it was real. They see you and see a solution. We've been telling them no. Why? I asked. Gidi's answer came quietly. Because we've spent our whole lives being someone's problem to solve. We'd like to just be someone's choice for a while. I sat with that. We don't need to be healed right now, Doko said. We need to know the healing isn't the reason you're here. I understood that in a way I didn't need to explain. The particular exhaustion of being wanted for what you carry instead of who you are. I'd lived inside that my whole life too, just from the other direction. Then let me take you somewhere tomorrow, I said. No council, no contracts, no bloodline conversation. Just a day that belongs to us. Gide raised an eyebrow. Are you asking us on a date, Chanyol? I'm asking you on a date. Doko's mouth curved into something slow and real. Yes. The botanical garden was my idea and I was right about it. It was the kind of place that existed outside of everything else. One in wide paths and low light filtering through glass panels overhead, quiet enough that you could hear your own footsteps. I pushed Doko's wheelchair through the east section. Gide moved alongside us, navigating his own chair, with the easy efficiency of someone who'd long ago made peace with it, and we moved through the garden at no particular pace with nowhere to be. Doko asked me the name of every plant we passed. I told him, some of them twice because he kept forgetting the Latin and only wanted the common names, which led to a longer conversation about why Latin names existed at all, that Gitai eventually joined with an opinion nobody asked for. We argued about it cheerfully for 10 minutes. Gitai bought me a coffee from the garden cafe without asking if I wanted one, just appeared beside me and handed it over. Mekrim, when I looked at him, he was already looking somewhere else. Doko found a corner with a particularly good arrangement of white flowers and sat there quietly for a while, and I sat next to him, and neither of us needed to fill it with words. On the drive home, I sat between them in the back seat, city lights moving past the windows, and felt something I hadn't felt in so long it took me a moment to name it. Safe. Wanted. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. We were still easy with each other, still warm, when the car pulled through the estate gates. The council members were waiting in a line, faces blank with official business. Two stepped forward before we fully stopped, and the handcuffs caught the headlights. Bek Chanyol, the senior official said, by order of the Shinpak Council, you are forbidden on this land effective immediately. The handcuffs clicked and everything went quiet. Not actually quiet. The council official was still talking, reading charges off a tablet in a flat official voice, and I could hear Gitai behind me telling him to stop, and Doko's wheelchair moving fast across the gravel. But inside my head, everything went still and distant. Bek Chanyol, flagged bloodline carrier, illegal presence on protected pack land. You'll come with us. Take those off him. Gidi's voice was sharp enough to cut. Alpha Shin. The official didn't even look up from his tablet. This falls under Supreme Pack authority. Your jurisdiction doesn't apply. He is a guest of this household. He is a violation. The official finally looked up and his expression wasn't cruel, just settled. The face of someone who had already decided. One, you have no standing here tonight. I turned and looked at the twins. Dogo had positioned himself directly behind the official, jaw tight, eyes on me. Gitai had gone completely still, which I knew by now meant he was deciding whether to do something he couldn't undo. They were both ready to fight this, and fighting it tonight would cost them more than I was worth. It's okay, I said. Chanyol, Dogo started. I said it's okay. I held his eyes for 1 second. Let me go. They took me to the council chamber, sat me down across a long table from 5 senior officials, and told me the truth about my own life. My mother had cheated on Baek Jung-soo with a man who practiced forbidden bloodline magic. Underground rituals, the kind outlawed for generations because they didn't just create, they consumed. The ritual built the restoration bond into my blood. My mother's life force paid for it. She died the night I was born, and my biological father disappeared before morning. Baek Jung-soo found her, found me, and made a decision that had nothing to do with love. He bound my bloodline, buried the evidence, bribed 3 pack officials to falsify my records, and raised me knowing exactly what I carried and exactly how long he was willing to wait to use it. 26 years. The council placed a formal ban on my presence across all Shin Pack land, flagged my name in the regional pack registry, removed the handcuffs, and showed me the door. In no time, I found myself before my grandmother's door. She opened her door before I knocked. "Let me explain," she started. "Did you know?" I walked past her into the house. About my mother, the magic, what he did to keep me alive and why. She didn't answer immediately, which was its own answer. "How much?" I turned around. "How much did you know?" She sat down. "All of it." The word landed flat and heavy between us. I knew about the affair. I knew about the ritual and what it cost her. I knew what Jung-soo did after. The binding, the bribes, the records. She pressed her hands together. What I didn't know was how far he was willing to go with it. Using you against the Shin Pack, going to the council, that isn't greed anymore, Chanyeol. That's a man settling a grudge he's been carrying for 26 years against a woman who isn't alive to answer for it. So he's destroying me instead. "You're what she left behind?" Her voice broke slightly. "You're the only thing he can still hurt her with." I stood there looking at the woman who had known all of this, who had sent me into that house, who had written "Don't pity them" on a card and handed me a situation she never fully disclosed. "I sent you to them because you deserve people strong enough to hold what you carry," she said. "I still believe that." "You should have told me," I said. "You should have let me choose with the full truth instead of pieces of it." She didn't argue. That was the only honest thing left in the room. I left. I unlocked my shop, went inside, and sat behind the work table on the floor with the lights off. I didn't want to arrange anything or fix anything or be useful. I just wanted to sit in the one space that had always been mine and exist in it without anyone needing something from me. I'd been there 20 minutes when the door opened. The both of them. I heard the familiar rhythm of their chairs moving carefully through the dark space, navigating around the buckets by memory. They stopped a few feet away and didn't turn the lights on, and nobody spoke for a moment. "You should go," I said. "I mean it this time. I'm flagged. My name is in the registry. My bloodline is illegal. Every connection you have to me is a liability now, and you've worked too hard for too long to let someone like me burn it down." "Someone like you," Gite repeated. "A forbidden experiment. That's what I am. That's what the council just confirmed." "The council," Doko said, "can go to hell." I looked up. "We're not here about the bloodline," Gite said. "We're not here about what you carry, or what it can do, or what any record says about you." He paused. "We're here because we love you, both of us, and we are asking you, right now in your shop, with no pack authority and no contract, and nothing to offer you except ourselves, marry us." The shop went completely silent. "You don't need to answer tonight," Doko said quietly, "but we needed you to know." My throat tightened with the answer in it. "Yes," I said. Just that one word in the dark of my flower shop, with chrysanthemums and white roses around us. Gide went very still. Doko exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath since the night we met. Nobody moved for a moment. Then Gide reached up and touched my face with one hand, just his fingertips against my jaw. The most careful thing I'd ever felt from someone who spent most of his time being precise and cold. I turned toward it without thinking and lowered myself. Doko's hand found mine in the dark, and when Gide leaned forward and kissed me, it was so quiet and unhurried that I almost didn't understand what was happening until it was already over. Almost. Doko kissed me after, slower, one hand still holding mine. Anorin and I stayed between the two of them in my flower shop at midnight, feeling like the ground had shifted permanently. I saw the public statement on my phone the next morning. The twins had released it jointly at 6 a.m., a formal declaration addressed to the Shin Pack Council and distributed to every major pack news outlet in the city. It said, in language that was precise and controlled and unmistakably theirs, that Baek Chun-yeol bore no responsibility for the circumstances of his birth, that the council's treatment of him was unjust, and that Shin Gitai and Shin Dok-go were withdrawing from pack territory until the ban was lifted. I read it 3 times. "You can't do this," I said, looking at both of them across my kitchen table. We already did, Gitai said, pouring coffee. You're withdrawing from your own pack. Your company, your council seat, We know what we withdrew from, Doko said simply. We were there when we did it. I put my phone down and pressed both hands flat on the table because I needed something solid. You built everything you have from nothing, from the worst possible starting point. You don't get to throw that away for me. We're not throwing it away, Gitai said. We're telling them what it cost to lose us. That's different. I didn't have an answer for that. I wasn't sure there was one. The council representatives arrived at the shop 2 days later. 3 of them, formal and unhurried, delivering their condition with the practiced calm of people who believed they were being reasonable. Bec Chanyol would be accepted. The ban would be lifted. The marriage would be recognized. But in exchange, he would bond with the twins to trigger the restoration, and he would make himself available to the PAC's medical division for further bloodline research and application to other disabled PAC members. They said it like they were offering something generous. The twins said no before the representatives finished speaking. Together, one word, no discussion between them needed. The representatives left. The twins didn't waver. That was day 2. By day 5, PAC members were showing up outside my shop. Not violent, just present, standing across the street with their phones out, leaving comments on every public post connected to my name. I started keeping the shop lights off during hours I was usually open, watching from the back room, reading things about myself that I folded carefully and put away somewhere I wouldn't look at again. I didn't tell the twins. They had enough. On the 7th day, I couldn't anymore. They were at my kitchen table again, both of them working through documents related to the PAC dispute, and I stood in the doorway watching them and felt something crack open in my chest that I'd been holding shut since the night in the council chamber. I love you, I said. Both of them looked up. I love you, and I have for longer than I admitted to myself, and that's exactly why I can't keep watching this. My voice stayed level because I needed it to. You built your empire with broken legs and no parents in a world that spent 20 years underestimating you. I watched you do it in the short time I've known you, and I am not going to be the reason it comes apart. I'm not. Chanyol, Doko started. I'm calling the council. They fought me on it. Both of them together with everything they had, and it was the first real argument we'd had since becoming something to each other. And it hurt in a completely different way than the earlier ones because now there was love on both sides of it, making everything sharper. I called the council anyway. The contract signing was quiet. The bonding ceremony was not. It was held in a neutral PAC location, small and official, and when Gitai took my hand and Doko pressed his forehead against mine, I stopped thinking about the council or the conditions. I just felt them, both of them, warm and real and chosen, and I let myself have that completely for the length of time it lasted. Afterward, we sat together and waited. I watched their faces. Giti's hands, Doko's expression, looking for anything, a shift, a change, some sign that what I carried was doing what it was supposed to do. Nothing. 5 minutes, 10, 20. Nothing changed. The bond was complete, and the bloodline sat in my veins doing absolutely nothing. And the devastation that moved through the room belonged to all 3 of us in different ways. Then my phone buzzed. My father. I read the message once. Then I read it aloud so the twins could hear every word. Did you really think I would let you use it that easily? I bound your bloodline myself. It doesn't move without me. So tell me, what are the Shin twins willing to give up? Because I have a number in mind, and this time, it isn't small. Nobody spoke for a full 10 seconds after I finished reading. Then Gide reached for his phone, ready to take action, and I put my hand over his. Don't. He looked at me. This is mine, Ma, I said. He is my problem, and I am going to be the one to end it. I need you to let me do that. Doko studied my face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. I won't let him extort us any longer. They put their phones away. I stayed up all night going through everything I had. Every document, every voicemail, every memory I could date and place and attach evidence to. The falsified birth records, the illegal binding performed on me as a newborn, the bribed PAC officials, the media leaks, the council manipulation. 26 years of my life used as a slow-burning financial strategy by a man who had no biological claim to me and knew it the entire time. I wrote it all down in plain language. No drama, no flourishes, just facts in order with documentation attached. The twins sat in the next room the whole night, not interfering, not asking questions, just there. At some point, Dogo slid a cup of coffee through the doorway without coming in, and I drank it without stopping writing, and that was enough. By morning, I had a case. I called the National PAC Authority at 8 o'clock and filed a formal appeal before I could talk myself out of it. The process took 3 days. Same questions asked different ways. Documents reviewed and re-reviewed. Investigators with carefully neutral faces who gave nothing away until the second day. When one of them looked at the binding documentation, set it down slowly, and moved it to a different pile without explanation. I understood what that meant. The twins came with me every day and sat beside me without speaking, which was exactly what I needed and exactly what they understood without being told. My father was arrested on a Thursday. I found out by phone. A few plain sentences and then silence while I figured out what I felt. It wasn't what I expected. No celebration, no collapse. Just a quiet, complicated exhaustion. The kind that comes when something you've been bracing against your whole life finally stops. I called the twins. "It's done. Come home," Daco said. Just 2 words and I was already bouncing on my way. The national authorities' ruling came the following week. The binding was classified as an illegal violation of biological rights. The forbidden bloodline status was removed. Every council decision against me was overturned. I woke up the morning after the ruling feeling different. Not dramatically, not the way stories describe magic unlocking. Just open, like something that had always been sealed had quietly come undone overnight. I lay there for a moment, making sure I wasn't imagining it. Then I called Gitai. "Something happened," I said. "We know," he said. His voice had something in it I'd never heard before. "We felt it too." The restoration happened slowly, over days, then weeks, feeling returning to their legs in increments, small movements that hadn't existed before. One morning, Daco pressed his foot flat against the floor and went completely still, staring down at it. And Gidi's hand tightened around his wheelchair armrest with a different kind of tension than usual. They looked at each other, and I looked away, because that moment belonged to them. I held their hands through all of it and didn't need to be anything else. I went to my grandmother on a Sunday. She opened the door and I stood on her steps and said, "I'm not completely fine yet, but I'm not done with you either." She pulled me inside. We sat at her kitchen table, and she told me things about my mother I hadn't known. Small things, ordinary things. The kind that don't make it into dramatic revelations, but make a person real. The way she laughed, the flowers she liked, the specific stubbornness she passed directly to me without knowing she'd done it. I didn't forgive everything. Nay, but I stayed for 2 hours and I meant it when I said goodbye. 3 months later, the pack formally welcomed me in a ceremony that the head elder cried through, and that Gidi complained about the length of under his breath the entire time, while Doko pretended not to hear him. I stood between them in front of the entire pack and felt none of the things I'd been afraid I would feel. No performance anxiety, no waiting for the moment it would be taken away. Just the solid, unremarkable reality of belonging somewhere. Afterward, I went back to the shop. The twins showed up on a Tuesday afternoon with no announcement and no reason. Giddy picked up a white rose from the nearest bucket and turned it between his fingers. "You trimmed these correctly this time." "I always trim them correctly. The first time you did the east garden, you missed 3. I fixed them immediately. After I pointed it out." "You didn't point anything out. You stayed there silently judging." Doko watched us from beside the work table with the expression he wore when he found something genuinely funny but refused to admit it. Then he said something so quiet and unexpected that I laughed before I could stop myself. The real kind, sudden and unguarded. I looked at both of them in the afternoon light coming through the windows. Giddy still holding the white rose, almost smiling. Doko watching me with something steady and warm in his eyes that I had stopped trying to look away from. His hand found mine over the work table. Just rested there, easy and certain. I thought about forbidden magic and my dead mother and 26 years of being someone's instrument. Then I let all of it go because Gidi was still arguing about the roses and Doko's hand was warm and the shop smelled like chrysanthemums and everything my blood was made from had somehow led me here. Here felt like home. The end Shanyo was sold, banned, and told his existence was illegal. But he still chose love anyway, and love chose him back. If this story got to you, hit that like button, drop a comment telling us your favorite moment, and subscribe so you never miss what story comes next. We'll see you in the next one.